Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Tucson. So today, I want to talk about boundaries. And when I made that video, the maintenance man had asked my daughter for a picture with him, and it set off a reaction. Um, I've been real stressed in my body over this, and it won't leave me alone. So I want to go back to when I first came here when my daughter was in the first grade. Um, we lived out in an RV only for a little while. And then I decided to go into apartment living because, I had been living in houses for years and I wanted to live in apartments. So I had rented an apartment and I'm not going to name any of the organizations because everyone will know because they've either had a similar experience or and the ones who are doing the act will know who they are and they'll expose themselves, as I've talked about in the past. Um, so what happened was, it was a really nice community. It was right on the main drag, and it was convenient for me. Had all my bus routes any direction I wanted to go. And so my dad had to co-sign for me on it. It was the first time I had, you know, rented in the United States because I had been gone for 8 years, or 7 years, I believe it was. And so my dad agreed, he knew that I was a responsible person. And that's when I experienced my first cockroach. It wasn't one, it was a lot. And they were in the walkway. And uh, it was weird, they were chasing me. It was so creepy. I've never been so creeped out in my life. And then that's how I started finding out resources. So when I went and complained about it, they said, you got to call the city and they'll come out and spray the drains or the underground sewage areas. And so I did, and that stopped. Um, and then I, I was in the community with my daughter. We'd swim and hang out, and people would talk, with me and stuff. It was pretty interesting. And then um, there was this woman I met, and her house was real dark, and she had all these angels, but they were dark. And I was like, that doesn't seem right, but okay. And she could barely walk. And I did make a video about this, I believe, but Father keeps, he keeps having me because he wants me to go over every detail. So, um, sh her and I talked, and it was cool, And then I started having small problems in my apartment. Things were being moved. The first day I moved in, I had left a roll of quarters in there, um, and cash, and something told me to go back and get it, and I did. I went back and got it all, and just kept it with me. But I know I put things certain places, and when I came back, it was totally different. So I was like, okay, you know. And so uh, her and I were spending time together and stuff. We were talking, and she was involved in something I was involved in years ago. And I researched it to the end, and I found out it was false. And I was talking to her about it, and I was speaking to her about Father never, ever, ever lined his own pockets first. He didn't line them anyway because he told everybody to leave everything behind, right? His son Jesus. Um, and as you move through each city, uh, people will help you. So uh, he never expected anything from anybody, and he taught a lot of lessons too throughout the process and parables and so on. So one day, um, uh, I felt like I was being watched in my apartment. I was on my couch, and it felt like it was zeroing in on me from the vent. And I was talking to others other people, and they were having similar experiences. And so what happened was, it made me feel very uncomfortable, and I would leave my place. I'd just go do something, talk to somebody else. But every time I would ask, "What apartment are you?" This one maintenance guy would show up out of nowhere. So I started putting the two together, and it was strange. Um, there was a lot of events that happened in this process, and so what happened was, one day I was walking, and something flew by me so fast I couldn't even see it. And that maintenance man walked by me and goes, "It was an owl that flew by you." I was outside the apartment, so that means he had cameras all over the property. And how I know for sure he did was, so one day I left and I went across the way to get the bus, and he was in somebody else's apartment on their patio, and he waved at me. He did. I was like, "Oh, I have a stalker." And it wasn't just me. There were other women too. This one young lady, um, she came to me, and she said, "I'm having these weird experiences, and I think that I'm possessed. Can you help me?" I go, "Well," I asked her what was going on. She goes, "Well, there's something that keeps walking on my ceiling of of her house." She was on the second floor like me. And I was having the same problems, and I was calling the police. They would send helicopters, lots of cops. Every time that things were happening to me, I'd file reports, but they're like, "Oh, we can't find anything. We don't know what's going on," and they didn't believe me. And so everybody saw what I went through, so they stayed quiet. But this young lady had bruises in between her legs, severe bruises, and I told her that's not from being abused in the way you think. I think she was being abused by the maintenance guy. I think he was raping her. He was drugging her and raping her. And I told her you should go to the police. She was afraid because of what happened to me. Even my own dad didn't believe me. So what sent me over the edge was my daughter and I woke up and we were staged. My arms, her arms and my arms were above our head and our legs were spread. And I had a, I had a quilt and it was slid down all the way down to the very corner of our bed. Remember, she was in first grade. After that night, I slept on our couch and I put her behind me and I was literally slept one night, one eye open and I slept. I don't think I even slept. I prayed through the whole entire time so he would think I was awake. That's how God worked in our lives. So I tried to set a camera up. Um, I put all the recording stuff outside on the patio because it had its own space, and had a door and lock and everything. And one day, I put a brand new tape in it, and I took it to my friend, and she goes, "Wasn't that tape brand new? It had a scratch mark in it, and there was nothing on it." So we went back to look how he got in, and it had hinges on the outside of the door, but he was also maintenance. He had a key. He had access. I mean, I would come home and there would be honey on my counter, but my honey has a thing where you have to squeeze it to get it out. I went on vacation. He was tampering with my stuff in my house. And the guy who was supposed to watch my house had a mild heart attack, so he wasn't watching it. He was in the hospital. I made a video about him too early on. Um, but it seemed like he knew everywhere I was. And I had these St. Michael cards I used to give out. Um, and I banned him. Well, yeah, there's another thing he told me too. Hold on. So when I had got my computer here in town, the maintenance guy told me you should get a box that gives you a higher speed. Let me know and I'll help you set that up. And I didn't. But when I was setting it up, I got this message. Um, I didn't understand it, and I let them in. And what happened was I was being watched. Everything I was doing, he, he knew when I was going, when I was coming. He had my phone numbers on my phone because my friends were getting harassed. I would work for my dad, and we finished those jobs. We had to go back and fix water leaks that weren't there before. Those houses had sliding glass doors. And here in Arizona, they're flipped around. I don't know why. And so they're easier just to pop off. And that's scary. You can put any bar you want on it. It doesn't matter. And if you're a maintenance guy, because you know how to get in apartments. If you have people who have abandoned or if they've died or whatever, they have ways of getting in. So, um, um, hold on. Let me get my pants out again. I'm sorry. So, um, I was in my apartment and I was trying to make a plan, how I was going to escape this person. So, what I did was I got up in the middle of the night and I contacted the company to remove it from my system. And we're on the phone a good hour and a half. Just as he got it to get it off my system, my power cut off in my apartment. I was like, oh God. I was so freaked out because but he missed it. The other guy got it off my system, so he couldn't spy on me anymore that way. So I got that done. And then I had just this one person I would hang out with, and she knew what was going on. I told her everything because things were happening to her too. And she also had a sliding glass in her apartment as well. So I escaped in the middle of the night. I packed my bags and my daughter, and we left at 3 o'clock in the morning. And when I got to near my friends, I destroyed my cell phone. And back then it was just a flip phone, but he was still able to know what I'm doing. I don't know. It was crazy. I didn't understand really. I was so freaked out. And I went to stay with my friend. And at the time, I was going through child support things with my son because my parents had my son. And so one day, um, her and I had went to the courthouse. Or she went somewhere and I went to the courthouse 'cause I had to go. And when she got back, she goes, "How did these get here?" And there were eight of them, and there were St. Michael cards I had left on my counter when I abandoned my apartment. They were in her house, and it just freaked us out, both of us. And then CPS got involved. They took my daughter for a week, and then we moved, and then I left the state after that for a little while because I can't shake that guy, that maintenance man, and I don't know what he did to us that night, but God does. And I want to talk about the access that these maintenance men have. They have keys. So I reported a maintenance man um, on their sister property here, and there was a bunch of glass. There was a wall. Everybody used to come over, and kids too. And I was afraid if they fell, they would cut their hands and stuff, or get injured. So I asked him if he'd pick it up. He didn't. So I let his boss know, who actually I know very well. And I came home one day and he had wiped his asshole on my towel and hung it over my um, shower rod. So from then on, I've learned just to remain quiet because they have keys too. And that is frightening because in the first place we went to, I'd be at the pool minding my own business, and men would come up to me and they would say, "Oh, I hear you're religious." So, I'm not religious. Well, you have a lot of books. Well, how do you know I have those books? Have you been in my apartment? And I was like, nobody would have known I had those because they were in my closet. I kept them out of sight because people would tend to be mean when they saw that I read a lot. And, you know, again, I'd be called crazy. So, um, I had to shake him. I had to leave the state to shake him. It was a couple years later when I could afford to leave. And I finally left. Um, but CPS only had my daughter for a week. Um, it was strange too because my daughter felt I abandoned her, that I didn't fight for her, and I did when I signed her over because it had nothing. I didn't do anything wrong, and it was the person I was staying with who made that phone call because I destroyed a carton of cigarettes. Like, I've been trying to quit smoking for years, and she didn't like the fact that my daughter wouldn't eat her food. So, um, it was really hurtful too because I really thought that she was my friend, and she wasn't. She was the first one to stab me in my back, especially in a relationship I was in with someone else. She was really dogging me behind my back, but my hands told me all about it. So I talked about that too, um, in my past videos. But it was, but then it continued on. Like, I had boyfriends who were doing the same thing, um, you know, and I had a feeling not to let him use my system once. But I let him do it anyway. And so one day I was researching, how do you tell the police, or how do you find someone who's going to tell you that someone's in your computer, in your emails, and they know everywhere you go. Even in my cell phone, man. I mean, he had me all rigged up. Anywhere I'd go, he would just show up. It's stalking, and that's illegal. It's not, but I didn't know then. Like, I didn't know a lot of stuff. I had to learn throughout all these experiences. And but he was the worst maintenance I've ever had in my life, not knowing if he even harmed my daughter. It's so freaky. And but he wasn't just me. There was many. One of the other maintenance guys on that first property, he came to me because I want to show you something. And they had this huge furniture bin. They were always putting furniture out, from all these apartments. And he showed me the guy's dish was still on his table. Only thing he took was his shoes and the coat. He left everything behind just like I did, just like many residents, because we didn't know where all the cameras were and the listening devices. But added up, for every person who left their lease, broke their leases, it was $1,200. My dad had to pay that, but I paid him back. Oh, when I got into college, I paid him back. That's a lot of money. That's fraud. I went to the attorney general. He's like, you got to talk to the police. I did talk to the police, and they told me they didn't believe me. My own dad didn't even believe me. But and then my dad gave away my furniture, which I talked about that too. You know, why would I lie? I had no reason to lie. None whatsoever, none. I was going through a lot then, I was just newly separated from my husband. Well, it's about a year and a half. I was back in my own country. I was trying to get back into how things were. And I was loving God like no tomorrow. I shaved my head. My parents were in shock when I got back. I used to have real long hair. And they were like, something's wrong with her. She's crazy. I'm not crazy. I wasn't, you know. But my body tells me everything. And I'm still so tense because I know that there's listening devices in our home, and I know there were cameras. Because why would some maintenance guy out of nowhere? He never gave that impression that had thing for my daughter. Um, that he was creepy. But other women started talking to men, their neighbors, that Pacific maintenance guy made them feel creeped out. We're just real busy in our house. We just didn't know. When I made that video, bullies have no power over us. There was something like interfering. You could hear it in the video. I felt that was a listening device of some kind. When my daughter and I used to talk, she'd be up here and I'd be down at the car. You can hear, and then you could hear like something was interfering with our conversations. So they were listening. So we switched out our cars. And then after what happened with the guy a couple doors down, I made another video. I, I don't feel safe. Um, like things changed. Like the manager and that maintenance guy were completely removed from the property, which I don't know why, because I was not in danger. But I switched out everything, but we're still being watched, and I don't like that. I want privacy. The U of A, all the colleges get um, they get checked for cameras and stuff randomly, and just to keep them safe. Apartments should do more to keep us safe. Apartments, uh, rental properties. The house we rented last year, um, a lot of weird stuff was happening. I think I made a video about that not too long ago. But we changed the locks, and there was a cut on it. I didn't change the outside locks on the gate. I changed them on the doors, and things changed. We had privacy. You know, on your boxes, make sure you change your codes, but do it outside. You can do it in your car. You can do it anywhere. You know. But I also feel like too, that our privacy has been hugely violated. When I first started making my videos, when I ended the relationship with someone I had was years earlier, and when my daughter was in elementary school, he also was stalking me. He would tell me that certain people were in my house. I had to be careful. And then that person who actually put the cameras in my house would tell me, you shouldn't settle for that guy. He's really weird. She would tell me things, so I knew that they were both watching each other through the cameras. After a while, you just become immune. You know when you're being watched. You know because by what people say to you and stuff. It's crazy. I mean, it's there. Never, ever, ever discontinue your gut feelings. And if you break your lease and they want to charge you, you need to go to the court and fight it and tell them why. If you don't start speaking up, it's going to continue. And you don't know. They have access to your house, they have access to your refrigerator. When we woke up like that, I never put food back in my house again. I don't buy anything that I can't put a lid on it and take it with me, or a can. It freaks me out. We don't even eat leftovers because we just don't know if we have left. I have become housebound because of no privacy, and they have a key. They have these systems, right, where it shows when they have who has been taking out the keys. If they're gone all day long working on an apartment, what makes you think they're not at the hardware store making a copy? So that's not foolproof. That's not enough for safety for your residents. And I know because um, females can be really, really deceitful too. And I've made videos about that as well. Who work in offices. They're the worst. You complain on them. If you move, oh my gosh, they change your brand new carpet. And there's nothing wrong with it. And there goes your deposit. But you know what? There's karma for that. When you take from someone who didn't do anything to you, but reported your bad behavior. You know? But they have a key. I remember many times the revengeful things that people did because they had a key. And that's why people stay quiet because they're afraid of retaliation. We had a lot of retaliation, but we had documented it and proof. So, and if it's happening to us, you know it's happening to other people. But instead, you're just going to remain quiet or stay stranded in your home, isolated, where you can't talk to anyone else, and the rumors start. Because that's exactly what has happened to me over and over and over every time I spoke up. I'm never going to stop speaking. I'm not ever, ever going to shut up. So I'll leave that with you. Peace.